Hello everybody and welcome back to a Fast Fact series. I'm Ted, your host, and for this Fast Fact, we're going to examine the Varian disaster. Now, the Varian disaster was a military it was a military disaster that the Germans, under a man named Arminius or Herman. Herman will be the English translation of it. Inflicted one of the great defeats, just a crushing defeat on the Romans in the Teutoburg Forest. Now, the Varian disaster can be traced back to the campaigns of Gaius Julius Caesar. Caesar campaign brought all of Gaul under Roman control. Now, ancient borders were not really that well defined. The borders between Gaul and Germania were not that well defined. They sort of just melded into one another, and you'd have you'd have like different sort of patches of areas that were predominantly Germanic culture or Germanic language was spoken, and one in which Gallic languages and Gallic cultures were predominant. That type of package doesn't really meld well for imperial states, and Caesar needed a definitive border to sort of show his conquest and to show where Roman power and Roman authority began and ended. So Caesar arbitrarily chose the Rhine River at the demarcation line of his new conquest. On one side of the Rhine River would be Caesar's new Gallic conquest of the Roman Empire. On the other side would be the home of these bellicose Germanic tribes. Now, the Romans under Augustus made periodic intrusions into Germania, and in the year 9, in 9 of the Common Era, a general named Publius Quintilius Varus was sent by Augustus to lead an expedition into Germania. Now, a German leader named Arminius, that would be the Herman that I mentioned earlier. He deceived Varus and led him into a trap where the Romans were ambushed and slaughtered. Now, the Roman way of war depended on the Romans being able to operate in open fields. The legions were restricted and not very capable of standing up and fighting. They were not at their best operational level in forested areas, and in a chaotic setting, the legions disintegrated rapidly. They needed that open area, those flat open surfaces, for their drilling and their discipline to be effective. Varus was led into the German forest, where 3 full legions were lost at the Battle of the Teutoburg Forest. Now, Augustus, this was a profound shock for the Romans. Augustus had this reputation of being invincible in battle. Augustus's legions had this reputation of being invincible in battle. He had overcome Antony. He had overcome the liberators. He literally just had this sterling reputation of being somebody who was somebody who under whose rule, under whose guidance, the Romans could know no defeat. They could do no wrong. The Varian disaster was one of the great blemishes. I can't say it's the only blemish. It was one of the great blemishes of Augustus's rule. His rule was otherwise pretty peaceful, pretty calm, and pretty stable. Thereafter, he launched a sort of like haphazard war against the Germanic tribes, and it didn't end well for Arminius or Herman. His family members stayed loyal to the Roman Empire, stayed loyal to Augustus's sort of imperial umbrella along the Rhine River. His sort of like reeling into the Germanic peoples there, and Arminius himself, he died broken. He was betrayed by his men, who were angered that his defeat of Varus didn't lead to a Roman withdrawal, but simply intensified Roman efforts to draw the Germans into their empire. that'll end our discussion on the Varian disaster. Hit like, subscribe, and comment. Let me know what you thought about it. And as always, I'm Ted, and I'll see you guys next time for another Fast Fact.